Hello everyone and welcome to the SBI Securities weekly wrap podcast. So firstly, let's talk about how the markets have been in the week gone by. The Indian equity market ended the week on a lower side with benchmark indices Nifty and Sensex declining about 0.3% and 0.7% to settle at 21,783 and 71,596 levels respectively. Broader markets outperformed the benchmarks as BSE midcap gained 1.6% while BSE small cap lost 0.4% during the week. Major event during the week was the RBI's monetary policy meeting, where the MPC members left the key interest rates unchanged and maintained the status quo stance. Though the FY25 real GDP growth forecast was upgraded to 7% from 6.6% earlier, the outlook on inflation and banking liquidity remained on the cautious side. Overall, the RBI policy was neutral to positive for the market. However, investors shifted to profit booking as a matter of caution. On the economic data front, India's services PMI stood at 61.8 in January month, driven by higher demand and rise in new orders. Talking about the weekly sectoral gainers and losers on BSE, BSE oil and gas and healthcare indices closed with the highest gains of 3.8% and 3.4% respectively, which was followed by BSE reality, PSU, metal, IT and auto sectors. While on the losers side, FMCG sector lost the most, falling 2.3% for the week, followed by capital goods, consumer durables and BankX. Talking about the weekly Nifty 50 gainers and losers, so State Bank of India, BPCL, Coal India, Sun Pharmaceuticals and TCS were the top 5 gainers of Nifty 50, and UPL, ITC, Bajaj Finserv, Kotak Mahindra Bank and Britannia Industries were the top 5 losers of the Nifty 50 index. Taking a check on some of the key monitorables, the FIS turned net sellers this week in the cash market to the tune of Rs 5,551 crores, while DIIs remain net buyers to the tune of Rs 5,326 crores. The rupee remained stable on week at Rs 82.98 per US dollar. Brent crude rose 4.5% during the week to $81.5 per barrel. On the economic development front, besides the RBI's monetary policy meeting and services PMI data, no other major economic data releases were there during the week in the Indian market as well as in the global markets. So firstly, let's discuss how the RBI's MPC meeting outcome was. So the MPC committee maintained their status quo on policy rates at 6.5%. Consequently, the marginal standing facility, that is MSF, and standing deposit facility, that is SDF, also left unchanged at 6.75% and 6.25% respectively. Real GDP growth for FY25 was upgraded to 7% versus 6.6% earlier, as I highlighted. With first quarter, second quarter, third quarter and fourth quarter of FY25 GDP projection at 7.2%, 6.8%, 7% and 6.9% respectively. CPI inflation was projected at 5.4% for FY24 and 4.5% for FY25. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter and fourth quarter inflation for FY25 are projected at 5%, 4%, 4.6% and 4.7% respectively. The India's services PMI stood at 6-month high in the January month at 61.8, which was up from 59 in December month. The growth rate was driven by higher demand and sales, coupled with new orders rising at the fastest pace since July month of 2023. The improvement in service sector growth has followed a recovery in manufacturing, which hit a 4-month high during January month, driven by a sharp uptick in orders amid mild input cost inflation. Moving on to the key corporate developments during the week, so we will cover here all the top news in the stocks and the major results that were announced during the week gone by. So firstly, talking about Ashok Leyland's results. So Ashok Leyland's third quarter FY24 consolidated sales EBITDA at PAT has grown 7%, 46% and 74% year on year respectively. EBITDA margin has expanded 320 basis points year on year to 12%. So Ashok Leyland reported good set of numbers. BSE Limited's consolidated sales EBITDA and PAT has grown 78%, 99% and 123% year on year respectively. EBITDA margin has expanded 300 basis points year on year to 34%, so strong numbers from BSE Limited. Varun Beverages has also reported strong set of numbers for its fourth quarter CY 2023 quarter. The company's consolidated sales EBITDA and PAT grew by 20.5%, 34.2%, 76.3% year on year respectively. Gross and EBITDA margins of the company expanded by 34 basis points and 136 basis points to 56.6% and 13.3% year on year respectively. JB Chemicals and Pharmaceuticals December quarter numbers were also decent. The company's consolidated revenue, EBITDA, and PAT rose by 6.5%, 27.7%, and 25.9% year on year, respectively. Margins expanded by 437 basis points to 26.4%. Star Cement has also reported good set of numbers. The company's sales, EBITDA, and PAT clocked a growth of 5.5%, 37.2%, and 39% year on year, respectively. EBITDA margin also saw an expansion of 527 basis points year on year to 22.8%. Another company, Lupin, also reported good set of numbers. The revenue, EBITDA, and PAT grew by 20.2%, around 95%, and around 300% year on year, respectively. EBITDA margin improved 176 basis points on a quarter-on-quarter basis and 765 basis points on year-on-year basis to 20%. FDC's consolidated revenue, EBITDA, and PAT has grown 11.9%, 70.2%, and 94.5% year-on-year, respectively. Margins of the company improved by 626 basis points year-on-year to 18.3%. Power Grid Corp's revenue, EBITDA, and PAT was up by 2.6%, 3.2%, and 10.5% year-on-year, respectively. Margins of the company expanded by 57 basis points year-on-year to 88.4%. So not that big growth numbers. So the results were kind of muted or subdued for Power Grid Corp. Cummins India's revenue, EBITDA, and PAT has shown a growth of 16.8%, 35.5%, and 20.6% year-on-year, respectively. Margin has expanded by 281 basis points to 20.4%. So good set of numbers from Cummins India. United Breweries' consolidated revenue and EBITDA has grown 12.3% and 89.5% year on year, respectively. EBITDA margin expanded by 322 basis points year on year to 8%. The company has made a net profit of rupees 86 crores during the quarter against a net loss of close to rupees 2 crores in the third quarter of FY23. So that's a good improvement in the profitability of the company. So good set of numbers from United Breweries as well. Now talking about some of the key news during the week in the company. So BHEL has received an order worth rupees 5,500 crores from the Haryana Power Generation Corp for setting up of 1 by 800 megawatts ultra supercritical unit at Yamunanagar. So that will be positive for Bharat Heavy Electricals in short to medium term. Other than this, the Union Cabinet has announced its approval for a 10,523 MHz spectrum auction this fiscal year with a reserve price of rupees 96,317 crores. The auction will be held for spectrum in various megahertz frequency bands with a validity period of 20 years. So this will be positive for telecommunication stocks such as Reliance Industries, Bharti Airtel, and Vodafone Idea. During the week, we have given one call on Force Motors in our pick of the day call segment. The call was given at a price of rupees 4,170 for target of rupees 4,587. So Force Motors Limited is a leading manufacturer of commercial vehicles such as buses and vans, which are used for school children and employee transport. Its popular brand includes the Traveller, which is a market leader in its segment. Force Motors has a captive supply of diesel engines from its subsidiary Force MTU Power Systems, which is a 5149 JV between the company and Rolls-Royce Power Systems. Besides, the company also manufactures certain components in-house, such as brakes, clutch, gearboxes, axles, etc. So this backward integration enables the company to improve the performance of its vehicle besides making the supply chain resilient. There has been a stellar recovery in people transport segment as well. The school bus and van industry has seen a V-shaped recovery post-COVID with the full reopening of schools and offices. After taking a look on the flow of the market data points during the week, let's now focus on what is the market outlook for next week. So next week, Indian market will continue to track the ongoing results season, thereby resulting in stock-specific action. In US, CPI data, initial jobless claims, retail sales data, and PPI, that is Producer Price Index, will be out, which will also be keenly watched by the market participants to gauge the Fed's interest rate path going forward. India will also release data on inflation next week, which will be important from market's moment perspective. So investors are advised to stick to quality names in the current market situation. For key corporate actions in next week, kindly refer to our weekly wrap report. The link to view the report is shared in the description box below. This was all about the weekly market podcast. Thank you for listening.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.